All right. Well, Oscar, maybe we should start.
Mm, okay, oh, right. I see we have all people that are gonna speak today. My name is Oskar Rojewski. I'm professor of art history at the University of Silesia in Katowice, and I think I can say that a colleague of editors of this volume, and I have had enormous pleasure to work together with Michael Green at the Center for Privacy Studies at the University of Copenhagen. And this afternoon, we will speak about the new volume, Privacy in Early Modern Egodocuments, Personal Life in Historical Perspectives, which is a part of the series Studies in the History of Privacy. And I'm really delighted to welcome editors of this volume, Professor Michael Green, Professor Joanna Orzel, and Professor Anna Kowalcze-Pawlik from University of Łódź. And I will start with a brief introduction about privacy studies and what the volume contributes to the field. Then I will give the floor or the screen to the editors and leave them a few questions to make the discussion more vibrant. We are also counting with the presence of one of the authors of the chapters included in the volume and two experts on ego documents. So, the concept or the idea of privacy as a lens or kind of analytical category in humanities research was spread thanks to the Center of Privacy Studies from the University of Copenhagen I mentioned before. And the present volume offers a contribution to the field of privacy studies, exploring how privacy can be understood and studied through ego documents. And drawing on a wide range of personal writings, the book approaches to privacy and challenges modern assumptions, opening new directions for academic writing and thinking. One of the most important contributions of this volume lies in its careful and historically sensitive definition of privacy. Rather than treating privacy as a fixed or universal concept, the book emphasizes the fluid character and dependent character of privacy. Editors argue that privacy should not be understood as a clearly defined right in the early modern period, since privacy formal and legal articulation only emerged much later, in the 19th century. However, this does not mean that early modern individuals lacked a sense of privacy. On the contrary, as the book demonstrates, notions of privacy existed as cultural practices, social expectations, and individual experiences that changed across time, space, and social groups. Privacy in this volume is defined not as a single category, but as a shifting cultural practice shaped by social norms, political structures, and personal relationships. And this approach allows the authors to move beyond focus on how people themselves understood and negotiated the boundaries between what was a private and a public. The volume highlights multiple dimensions of privacy, and these include emotional intimacy, control over information, autonomy in personal relationships, and limits of physical and social spaces. Privacy is closely linked to concepts such as intimacy, secrecy, and self expression. The book, which appeared thanks to the work of the publisher Braypols, stresses the privacy relative character. And privacy is not understood simply as isolation, but it's more about managing interactions with others. And we can compare it to what we call today kind of assertive response. Privacy allows deciding what to reveal, to whom, and in what context. An important innovation of the book is its focus on ego documents for studying privacy. And chapters provide insights into how individuals represented themselves and their experiences, offering access to what might be described as the private worlds, we can say. Privacy in Early Modern Egodocuments is an important publication for several reasons. First, it contributes to a growing field of privacy studies by extending it beyond modern and contemporary contexts. Second, the book offers a methodological framework for studying privacy through personal writings and by combining approaches from social history, cultural history, and literary analysis, it provides a new tool for interpretation of ego documents. And finally, the book engages with debates about privacy. In an age of digital data, as we live today, questions about privacy have become so urgent. And as the editors note, the study of privacy can illuminate broader issues of power, identity, and social interaction, both in the past and in the present. The individual chapters of the volume explore a wide range of themes, and these include family relationships, emotional expression, gender dynamics, legal practices, and social networks. Uh, want briefly to think about the audience of this volume, and I think it includes historians, literary scholars, and researchers in related fields such as anthropology, sociology, and cultural studies. And it might be particularly useful for scholars of early modern studies, but also for people interested in history of emotions, and of course experts of ego documents. For sure, graduate students and undergraduate can benefit from this volume as a kind of inspiration for their own works. Privacy in Early Modern Ego Documents offers an exploration of privacy as a historical phenomenon by defining the term as a dynamic and context dependent practice. Uh, with this brief introduction of the volume, I would like to give the screen to one of three editors of the volume and the editor of the series Studies in the history of privacy, Professor Michael Green, who will provide us with more details regarding the content of the book. And in the meantime, I will send you on the chat the link to the series by Brill uh, and the link the link to the volume and to its content. So, Michael, the 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 screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Joanna and Anna will be talking more about the content of the volume. I wanted to give a very brief introduction on privacy and the guiding methodology that were using, two words on Ego documents and two words about the series. And since our Brill editors will have to go, I will invite them to say a few words right after me, and then we can move on to our to my co-editors and to the rest of contributors, if that's okay with everybody. So I will be brief. First of all, thank you for coming here. Thank you, Oskar, for agreeing to chair our book launch. So I'm not going to talk a lot. It looks like many things, but in fact, I'm going to be brief. Privacy. So the main topic of this volume is privacy, as Oskar mentioned, and the personal interest that I had in Egodocuments led us, Joanna Orzel and Małgorzata Karkocha, back in 2023 to organize a conference in Lodz, which was dedicated to the topic of Egodocuments and privacy. Then we invite when the conference was completed, we invited also Dr. Anna Kowalcze-Pawlik to join us for the editing of this volume, and the three of us made this result. So, very briefly about early modern privacy. And privacy in the early modern period, as some of you may know and others perhaps not, doesn't have really a definition. We do consider it as what Stephen Margulis defined it as privacy as a regulation of access by a given person to him or herself, perhaps to a group of people. There are other definitions, but in this volume, that was the one that was guiding most of the chapters. Mette Berkedel-Brun was director, who is still director of the Center for Privacy Studies in Copenhagen, came up with two approaches to deal with privacy in the early modern time. And this is the terminological approach, which focuses on tracing the root priv throughout our sources and finding also neighboring contexts such as intimacy, secrecy, etc., evaluating if it's positive or negative. And the other approach that I like more, because I don't find the word priv very often in my texts, that's the approach of heuristic zones. So zones that don't really exist in the physical world, but exist as tools to map out the early modern world. So the closest one to us is the soul, then the body, chamber, household, community, and society. Together with my colleague and co-editor of another volume, Enrique Huisman, we decided to expand the set of heuristic zones and to divide it into spatial dimension and emotional dimension. So physical dimensions, the bedroom, the privy, so the toilet, other rooms in the house itself, and the outdoors. And then also some sort of emotional connections on different levels, and the special category is time. That was at the background of what we were doing as editors with the volume, and what we asked our authors also to keep in mind when they were writing their respective chapters. Egodocuments, I think that everyone here is aware, but just to bring everyone to the same point, it's a neologism which was coined by Jakob Presser, and most importantly, that it contains the particle I. Methodology for this type of source was developed by Rudolf Decker, who is here on the picture, which I took just 2 weeks ago in Amsterdam. Those documents are written with an audience in mind, children, church, public, etc. They contain events, ideas, ideals. Opinions are subjective, but thus present us with the understanding of what people could have thought, could have felt, and how they could have acted. Okay, so types of Egodocuments, I think that we have used most of them in the volume. Letters, diaries, journals. Egodocuments allow us to gain access into how people thought and understood their own lives. That's, I think, also quite an understandable idea. So the book was published, and that's perhaps an important part to mention, as the first volume in the studies of the history of privacy, which I co-edited and established together with Jessica Reutemann and Johannes Lundberg. And initially we were helped by Alessandra Giliberti, I hope I don't butcher her last name, who helped us organize in the series and establishing them with Brill. And Helena Schob, who is here with us today, took over from Alessandra and is helping us with the series now. And Melissa is the associate editor with whom we are in touch almost on weekly basis regarding different parts of our editorial work. So the volume is the first one. We are very proud that it is finally out. We have quite an extensive editorial board of people who were related to the Center for Privacy Studies, but also those who came completely from outside and have a different view on privacy than there is in Copenhagen. And uh, two more words about the series themselves. So we publish everything that is related to privacy in historical context up to 1914 mostly. There is possibility to publish monographs, edited volumes, and mini graphs, which is a relatively new thing, but we are very happy to have the opportunity to publish also smaller works, because sometimes it is impossible to develop a certain topic to a full-fledged volume, but you can publish something shorter if you like. So now I would like to stop talking and ask Helena maybe to say a few words about the series from Brill's perspective.
Thank you, Michael. So we
Yeah, thank you,
can we
Michael.
hear? Go.
Yeah, thanks. Indeed, as you said earlier, Melissa and I unfortunately don't have that much time, so we won't be able to stay for the whole launch, but we're really honored to be here and grateful for the invitation. And we can say that we're also very pleased with your work, the work of your team. It's been really exceptional to work with such a diligent and motivated and also patient group. So thank you so much for that collaboration. And I will also say that it is quite unique how the series about privacy has kind of carved out like a very interesting niche in our program. So we publish in early modern history, but there is really not much in our program that focuses on the subjective experience of people in the past and brings that to life in such a kind of rigorous scholarly way. So I really appreciate that. And I think it's also really exciting for readers to think about early modern history from the perspective of privacy studies and to get to know this rather novel framework. Maybe not novel, but I think underexplored framework as it stands. So thanks for bringing that to Brill. I look forward to all the other projects that are already in the pipeline. And if you have any questions, any of you attending for me as a publisher, don't be hesitant to get in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Helena. We will forward you questions through Michael at the end because we will have a small questions answers part of this meeting.
Perfect.
Right. So
thanks.
Thank you. So now I think we can move to the other editor of the volume, Professor Joanna Orzel.
Not professor.
And Joanna, I have a question for you, but as you probably will talk about the content of the book, maybe first I will leave you the floor and I will save my question to the end.
Yeah, thank you, Oskar. Thank you also, Michal, for your presentation. I think it was a good introduction to talk about our books, about Egodocuments and privacy. So the volume I had the pleasure of co-editing. It's only part the result of the conference Michal also mentioned. Some of the contributors actually joined the project later, once we had already decided to publish the book. And when we were looking for the new authors, we could say, what mattered most to us was diversity. Not so much in the topic of privacy itself, but in the kind also of sources, written both by men and women, used to explore privacy. Even though we focus on ego documents, these are incredibly varied, especially across the modern Western and Eastern Europe, but also America. So our goal was really to bring together different perspectives on privacy through a wide range of materials. Across the 12 chapters, if you want to see this chapter, click to the link which Oskar sent us. One key idea keeps coming back. Privacy wasn't something fixed or clearly defined. It changed depending on context, relationships, and how people choose to express themselves. And the book opens with a chapter written by Michal, a more methodological reflection on how we actually study privacy through ego documents and archival research. It highlights that privacy can be approached through language and spatial categories, as Michal said, and that different regions of Europe produce distinct types of personal sources which influence how private life can be reconstructed, we could say. Then the focus shifts to intimacy, which is presented by François-Joseph Roudieu as one of the key ways of understanding privacy in early modern France. By looking at dictionaries alongside personal writings, we can see how intimacy was linked to closeness, emotions, and relationships, especially friendship, marriages, and how its meaning depended very much on context. We then move to narrative accounts of life in the New World, which are analyzed as form of self-presentation, or even we could say self-promotions. What's particularly interesting here is how different versions of the same text, in this case John Smith's Virginia, can reveal changes in how authors present themselves, their public image, their private side, and even their emotions. Diplomatic sources offer yet another angle for the topic of privacy in the ego documents. Diplomatic sources show quite clearly that privacy depended on cultural norms and specific situations. Anna Kowalcze-Pawlik examines diplomatic accounts of Queen Elizabeth, and she shows that description of rulers and court life make it obvious that what counted as private could vary a lot and was often shaped by gender expectations. And this chapter offers a comparison of two detailed accounts of visits paid to Elizabeth. The first describing her behavior, her court, and its diplomatic protocols. So it was also very, very interesting. Legal records from Bilbao, especially those dealing with broken marriages, promises, and very universal theme, I think, bring us into a slightly different space. Marriage promise shows how very private matters like intimate relationships could suddenly become public, especially in the courtroom during court trials in the post-Tridentine era. So again, we saw how blurred that boundary between public and private sphere really was. The next type of personal documents analyzed in this book is correspondence. Personal letters, particularly those written during wartime, highlight the emotional side of all this. They show how noble family concerns, fear, and responsibility were all mixed together, making it hard to separate what was public from what was private. But if we look more broadly at family correspondence, it becomes clear that privacy wasn't always something individual. It was often shared within group. Very emotional openness created a kind of collective intimacy, we could say. We see in the chapter written by Katarzyna Kuras, she looks at letters among the Saxon Wettin family to explore noble family relationships, and she shows us that privacy was shared, expressed through emotional closeness rather than isolation. Another two researchers were invited to contribute to this volume to present lesser known personal documents from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which can certainly be compared to similar sources from Western Europe. So for me, it's very good that we could put more attention to our Polish accents. The first of these are friendship albums. Robert Tomczak posits that these albums operated at the intersection of private life and public engagement, documenting personal relationships, intellectual networking, cultural exchanges, while also mirroring, reflecting the balance between privacy and public exposure. The second one are testaments, which give us yet another perspective, offering a glimpse into everyday private life, especially in urban settings. Here, Bernadetta Manish analyzes the wills of a bourgeoisie woman from Vilnius, and she underlines the interpersonal dimensions of privacy that can be observed in last wills, extending the interpersonal aspect not only to people but also to material possessions. So it was another different kind of view for the privacy. There is also another article about sources created by women, this time written by me. Diaries and memoirs, particularly those written by women, function as spaces for self-reflection, and I extend the exploration of women's history within the privacy framework by examining the underlying motivation that compelled Polish women to compose diaries and memoirs at the turn of the 19th century. They allowed individuals to create a more personal sphere and to navigate the boundary between still private and still public life in their own way. Similarly, in intellectual circles, privacy could actually be constructed quite deliberately, we could say. People use different strategies like limiting access or even using coded language to create more intimate spaces within larger groups. And in her chapter, Natalia Woloszkowa explores how British bluestockings created privacy through writing. The main focus of her analysis is the case study of Mary Hamilton, whose practice of letter writing, keeping diaries, and composing poetry serves as an example of a consciousness effort to establish a sphere of privacy in written communication. And finally, Andras Vandi, who is with us today, conducts research on the lives of two 18th century Transylvanian Saxon clerks, and their reflections of their everyday lives, health, family, and professional relationships serve as a way to express their internal worlds, revealing not only the routines and rituals, but also the subtle negotiation regarding privacy that form the basis of these activities. So to sum up my short presentation, this volume doesn't try to give one simple definition of privacy in a document. Instead, it shows how complex and changeable it was. By looking at many different kinds of sources like letters, diaries, legal records, or diplomatic text, we can see that privacy always depended on relationship, on gender, and on the specific historical context, even the century. It also becomes clear that privacy was not really about being alone like we often think today. It usually exists within relationships with family, friends, or wider social groups, and it could easily shift. Something private in one situation could become public in another. So rather than treating privacy as something fixed, the book shows, we hope, that it shows it as something flexible and constantly changing. And that's really the main takeaway for us. Privacy was something people shape in their everyday lives, not something clearly defined once and for all and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Indeed, that's you somehow answered to my question without knowing it, but I will still dig a little bit into your experience as the editor of the volume. And I would like to know and to to have your opinion as an expert and editor of the volume. It will be kind of a tip for the future for the future of in the field of privacy studies. Can you recommend to scholars how to avoid projecting the modern understanding of privacy onto early modern text while still using it as an interpretative lens?
It's very difficult. I think so. For me, to create good contribution, good volume, the most important are people. Really, because I think it was the also main goal for us that every single chapter will be also maybe not in the same way of course writing, but we wanted to show that every single kind of sources must be written in some kind of methodology. What we, not we, but what the author thinks about the Ego document, what is the approach to the privacy, because it is very important. And I think this is the key, how we could create the next volume, that every single word must be think and rethink twice or more even more. Yeah. It's my opinion. Yeah. Okay. It's very difficult to not to you know to get this mistake that okay, because describing or even writing about feelings is very difficult, because we could add something more to the sources we written. Yeah, read. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And let's move to Anna Kowalcze-Pawlik, who, as we said before, was also the editor of this volume. And Anna, I think your background is a kind of special in this volume, because Michael and Joanna are pure historians, early modern historians, while you are providing different experience, the experience of literary studies related to the text and its meaning. And working on the volume.
I would very provocatively even say that I'm an impure historian, in contrast to Michael and Joanna.
I think that's great, because thanks to these different experiences, you could get to what we have in your volume. Do you know to say a few words from you about your experiences, or you want to go directly to my question?
Well, I think that my unique position, as you kind of described it, allows me to answer the question that you directed to Joanna, which is basically about the constructed nature of the notion of privacy, which in itself remains a construct. Right, it remains a concept. Not to go into, you know, the shady areas such as cognitive linguistics, for example, right? But indeed, in dealing with this concept, we need to be very careful about the language that we use, and we need to be very aware of the discourse that we are applying and which we are kind of working with when we reach for personal writing. So I think that the insistence of particular authors in this monograph on the language that they engage with is very telling, and it really signifies something special about the turn that I have been observing, just like everybody else in history, writing in itself, which is, we could call it a linguistic turn or a cultural turn, but definitely it is a turn towards the recognition that, first of all, language is an evolving thing, and we need tools to engage, you know, with it in historiography as well, right? And secondly, that we need to be very aware of our own position and perspective when we approach texts such as personal writings. Not to, and this is where I suppose I might divert from pure historians, right? Not to like make the text less pure, but be aware of precisely the lens through which we are looking, right? It is not a limitation. It is not a challenge, it's just our predicament or position or positionality, however you call it, right? That awareness is, I think, key in understanding the concept of privacy and its historical turns, perhaps not in evolution, but a turn, you know, the twists and turns that it has taken. So I'd like to give a quick shout out to the authors in this volume, because even though they do not share my, you know, my background, they are very careful in thinking about language, right? So that is one of the things that I have noticed, like looking from elsewhere, so to speak. Another thing that I would like to kind of to give a shout out to everybody in this monograph is the richness of the sources, the depth of the archival plunge that the authors have taken. I mean, I know that it is regular, that it is a usual thing, but still, considering the challenges, the methodological challenges, right? It is, to me personally, as I was working with this text, it was simply an inspiration. And, you know, we added different things in life, so to speak, as academics, but this one was special in the sense that it was very enriching to me personally as the editor. So I think that I owe a huge thank you to every single author of this book. So thank you. So now to your question.
Thank you so much. You know, I was wondering if, from your perspective, we can talk about a balance between privacy studies as a method, especially when it produces, if it produces a conflictive interpretation. Could you say us a few words about some not definitive conclusion you could find while editing the volume, or did you struggle with some source as the most complex?
Okay, I suppose you are right. You are asking a question by my own chapter, aren't you? Okay, so there is an aporia in this chapter. It is true. I didn't know whether I should be, you know, spoiling the fun for everyone. You know, because you will clearly see it for yourselves when you read it. I mean, when I was struggling with the definition of ego documents and how, you know, ego documents in the existing definitions, they stress very hard the personal nature of the writing. But to me, again, as the impure, you know, as the impure one,
You
which
did it
is the
well.
title, I think it is going to be a badge of dishonor that I'm going to wear from now on. So to me, again, the aporia that came through my own writing and through the discussion of the sources that I have been using was how and to what extent a personal writing, the writing about the self, is a negotiation of the self, right? With the, you know, with the writing, with the author, but also with the others. Right, and that is the question: where does an ego document stop being an ego document? Right, when the writing stops being personal, and to what extent we can treat it as an authentic self-document, and to what extent it becomes a rhetorical representation, right, of the writing, right, of the writing pen of the author. So Jakub Basista writes a very interesting chapter about John Smith and how you can sense that this development of of using privacy in an ostensibly, personal text for rhetorical purposes, for example. So I think that if you want to look at complexities that are connected with the notion of privacy and how it exists on a continuum, so to speak, right, as a method, let's say, when you look at it from the perspective of privacy studies, but also as a concept in itself, then I think you should have a look at Jakub Basista's text, perhaps, as at my own, because again, it struggles with that, with the boundary crossing as well. And I think at Nerejona in I'm sorry, Jauregi's text about lawsuits and egodocuments on sexual intimacy in early modern Bilbao. These would be like texts that really kind of struggle with, with complexities of egodocumental research, right, on concrete case studies, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Again, we will have a few questions and answers session at the end, so I will leave more for that moment. And we are counting today also with the attendance of Andras Bandi, the author of one of the chapters included in the volume. And Andras, I have directly a question for you. If you can tell us a few words about risks of generalizing the idea for privacy, of understanding the early modern privacy from such individual cases as you treated in your study. How you, to make it more simple, are there any risk you can observe studying a particular case to have a more broader conclusion on what the early modern privacy was?
Hello, I guess the biggest risk when you read sources like this is to get in the trap of false or privacy put at show, because we are here dealing with two clerks who are somehow emulating noble or aristocratic style lifestyles, and who are using their privacy to how to put it, they're using their privacy to keep up with their colleagues who are aristocratic. And you can say one big risk is to see this privacy put in stage as actual privacy. But as I continue to read these documents, I was able to see through that, and to at the thresholds between private and public, I could somehow understand that even if you have a certain amount of putting on stage, it is more or less more, I guess it's not a conscious one. So they are not doing it because they are reflecting upon it. They are doing it because everybody does it. So, and this was one of the risks I encountered. The other one was what to do with sources that when authors use their texts to hide their privacy. And it was very clear in the case of the second clerk that his only true privacy was when he could read, not when he could write. The other clerk had the other tendency. His privacy was merely writing and not reading. So these are the two risks I can name when reading intensively these kind of Egodocuments, which are not quite diaries, but they are summarizing one experiences through the years for the time when life becomes mostly private for retirement. So both sources are focused on retirement.
Okay, thank you, Andras. And we are counting also with scholars with experience in studying Egodocuments, Leonike Vermeer and Arvidas Pacevičius. And I would like to make them join our conversation. And Leonike, Arvidas, do you think that the privacy studies or the perspective offered in this real volume can help us better understand Egodocuments as primary source, or do Egodocuments fundamentally challenge the privacy studies as a method? What is your opinion about what included in the volume?
Thank you for inviting me to this interesting discussion. First of all, I want to congratulate the compilers and authors of this great book. It is great honor, I think, in Poland, in Lithuania, and all over Europe to publish, to print article text in such important printing house. It's a pity that I was not able to join this excellent team and authors. But answering this question, I thought about it, and few months ago there was a good conference about Jewish privacy and Egodocuments, and there was discussion about privacy in different environment, in different social groups, ethno-social groups, and so on. So maybe in the beginning, just few words about terminology, because from our Lithuanian point of view, Lithuanian researchers, it is important to understand and define exactly what it is privacy, what it is personality. In Lithuanian, we have specific word, asmenybė, asmuo, person, and individuality. Because when examining privacy, we often encounter not only private space, but also property, which is not necessarily individual, but also group, community, corporate. So term private library is not the same as personal library. For example, for me, I research history of book, history of libraries, and I understand exactly differences. And this is important when analyzing, for example, in your case, in this book, for example, old inventories or last wills, which were presented in this book. Yes, it is not only individual, but also family or group, communal, and so on, property. While studying Lithuanian Egodocuments, I came to the conclusion that most open expression of experiences, feelings, and emotions in early modernity born in environment of persons opposing of official Catholic religion, religion, especially it was important for representatives of evangelical Reformed Church. In my opinion, this is related not only to the higher literary skills, but also to deeper faith, theological and philosophical matters. The Reformation brought a different understanding of privacy, of human individuality, and it is believed that self-understanding and even conscience in Lithuanian sąžinė, or I don't know, alter ego, appears as certain category. And I want to present important quotation of our researcher Dainora Pociūtė. The anti-Christian values of the church, Abraomas Kulvietis was the first in Lithuania to raise the category of conscience, Latin conscientia, which the Apostle Paul, who interpreted the teaching of Christ, was particularly fond of using in his letters. Since conscience has become one of the fundamental concepts of the evangelical religious discourse, introduced in the first Lithuanian writings, for example, of Martynas Mažvydas. The end of quotation. So research on personality and intimacy should be linked not only to literature, but also, I think, to interdisciplinary research in social psychology, anthropology, philosophy, communication and information, and so on. So I think that book presented today, a monograph, it is important also from this point of view. And in the end, just some words about privacy and space, privacy, personality, presenting of personality in safe space. Because privacy, person, lived and in our days live in safe micro-autonomous territory protected by laws, by community or state. So just one question arises. Can or not privacy be expressed in prison, for example, and so on in different environments? So researcher James Samalang has distinguished cases when the victim created an autobiography even under impossible, very hard conditions. So such kind of questions arise, and I think that questions, yes, are important for the future, maybe.
Thank you.
Because Egodocuments can be analyzed from different perspectives, and I think that your contribution when publishing texts in this book, it is also important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Leonika, do you want to add your opinion on Egodocuments and privacy studies? Is it useful?
Yes, thank you, Oskar, for this question, and thank you everyone for this invitation to this book launch. First of all, my sincere congratulations. I think it's a very, very interesting and very provocative book, which I read or tried to read last week because I only got it for 1 week ago. But yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. So to answer your question immediately, Oskar, I think it's, it both, of course, challenges, but it definitely enriches the study of Egodocuments. And vice versa. I think Egodocuments can enrich the methodology of privacy and related topics such as intimacy, sexuality. Well, my personal field of study is the 19th century, so the long 19th century, so a little bit later than most of the contributions to your volume, which is, I think, very interesting in itself to study the development, which, of course, you also stressed in the beginning, that this development is very important. So I would really, welcome a volume which tells a story in the next century and later. For example, I see some, very interesting avenues in your volume, which I also study in the 19th century, especially in diaries I study. For instance, archival practices, I think, are very important and also fit into your broad definition of ego-documentality, which is much broader than just the writings itself, but also what is kept and what is not kept, and who makes the decision to keep some documents and throw away others. And I think there gender comes in as a very special, important topic, because, for instance, there are, of course, much less Egodocuments by women than by men, but this has a lot of reasons which I think in itself are very interesting to study, and also tell us a lot about privacy and related topics. So that's one of the avenues I think is interesting. Another one would be the materiality of sources. So, for instance, I also study when the first locks on diaries were put and were sold. It became a commercial item in the 19th century diaries. So I think that's also something. And locks, of course, they point to something secret. But as you also may know, a lot of diaries are, of course, also shared between friends, between parents, of course, parents and children. So these kind of topics I think are interesting. If I may, just add one, which is my personal favorite, is silences in diaries. And I think, for instance, I really liked also the contribution of François Rougiou.
I think we have a connection issue.
Indeed, there is a problem.
Oh. I'll try to
solve it.
People want to
solve it.
Sorry, people want to show keep track of their sexual habits, but they also want to hide it from others by using these symbols. So I see a lot of really interesting avenues you could you could proceed into to study in the next century also for your series. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Leonike. So I think now we can open the question answer session of this book launch. And before we will do it, I think all authors, editors need at least the virtual applause for the work. Do we have any questions at the public?
As I always say, maybe someone has more of a comment than a question, or more a question than a comment. Well, I wanted to just thank my co-editors for the work that they have done, because it was not always easy, and it was a lot of precision that was required of us as editors in negotiation with the authors, also trying to get our message through. But I must say that the conference was in 2023 in October, and then the book is already out 2.5 years later, which I think is not bad, especially since it was published in a big publisher, not in a small one. So.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the small one, I think this time is very similar.
Maybe editors would like to share with us some privacy or secrets related to the book to the book. I mean, the book launch is always a good occasion to know something that it's not written in the book.
Please, no.
I can tease you, Oskar.
Yeah, I'm afraid of.
So, so there is a page in my chapter where I use precisely the same word that Hamlet uses in Act 2, Scene 4.
Okay.
And it is no. Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Well, I think that if there are no more questions or no questions,
No
then
comments. I will conclude it. Right? Is it the moment, Michal? Do you want to add something else?
Well, maybe just one word about the conference that started all of it. So, besides the volume, there were two more outcomes of this conference. First outcome was the creation of the International Egodocumental Network, of which quite a few people present here are members. It was first discussed by me with François-Joseph Roju at the background of the conference, and then we continued the discussion with Joanna and Roju over dinner. And then we discussed it, I discussed it forward with Adrian Cichanowski, and it was eventually established. So that's one outcome, I think very important one. And the second outcome is the creation of the Center for Privacy Studies nowadays in Lodz last December. And the first stone in creating that center was that conference. So I think it was quite an important event. So this is all my part, and maybe, yeah, if there's no more questions, then we can finish.
Thank you. Just few things to conclude. I'm pretty sure this book launch brought many new ideas how to study ego documents, but also it brought some new interpretations for privacy studies as a field, and I hope both scholar spaces, can benefit from your contribution, from your volume. And as Michal already said, this work will find the future in the life of the center and in the research which is behind all pages you prepared to the reader. And also to close everything, congratulations on your book. I hope it will really have followers, because in somehow we are doing what we are doing, I mean scholar work, to make the world better place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oskar, for hosting us. Thank you, Leonike, for joining us and giving your insights. Thank you, Arvidas, for joining us and giving your insights. And Andras as the only representative of the authors, which is incredible. We managed to pick up a date that no author could join us, but they will see it in video, and we are all invited, of course, to read their contributions.
Waiting
We
for the second
we
volume.
haven't managed to say one thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Buy the book.
Oh,
Buy
yes.
it. Order it.
Order it for the library, because I doubt that that we can afford to buy it.
So maybe
But the libraries will.
read the book, not buy
Read
it.
the book,
Read
yeah.
Read the book. Read the book, review the book, and spread the word to your friends. And of
Yeah.
course, don't forget to submit your proposals to the series. Leonika, if you are willing to edit the second volume on Egodocuments and privacy on the 19th and 20th century before the war, then be my guest.
Thank you. I will think about it. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
so
nice
much.
Thank you.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
See you,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Bye bye.